Kia ora talofa, namaste, haere and welcome to the News Cache. This is our big old podcast coming at you to discuss and dissect some Aotearoa sporting matters, only the stuff we care about. And we're not too worried about how much money the cricketers earn in their T20 jobs, but we are worried about the double banger, Blackcaps and White Ferns that we got at the moment. However, the games are being played today. Round 2 of the double bangers will be played on Tuesday afternoon. Obviously, you know that the Blackcaps, they got pumped in their first game and the White Ferns won their first game. I am finding this series a bit tricky just to get wrap my noggin around. Not for the White Ferns though, and that's how I started my section of our newsletter that comes out every Monday and Thursday via Substack, thenewscache.substack.com. If we got double headers, the White Ferns are the main event, and I don't really think that's a hot take, but it is interesting when you think about that, and it's like, why are the Blackcaps the main event? Just because they're men, pretty much. Because everything about these two series of the double bangers is more interesting for the White Ferns. They got a clear team. They've got an interesting lineup, interesting combinations that are all aligned with a bigger purpose. T20 World Cup. The intensity of these games against South Africa is higher than the Blackcaps. The men's games, obviously, we know why. Because they're in two different T20 settings of their journeys. One's preparing for a big moment, the other's just chilling. They've just had their little battle and they're just chilling in the aftermath. And then someone comes and picks a scrap with them, I don't know. But the White Fern stuff is way more interesting, and they are my main event for this T20 series. And by that I mean, if I'm going to watch one of these games, I need to be watching the White Ferns, because that's where the intrigue is. That's where the interesting stuff is. And I mean, the Blackcap stuff can be interesting after the series, I think, because we need to see who scores runs and wickets in multiple games. And there's so many dudes coming in and out of the Blackcaps team right now, which is all good. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying, compared to the White Ferns, these are two teams in very different spots of intrigue. And someone might score runs no one scored runs in game one. No one really needs to take many wickets in game one, but they might do something in game one and then they're not playing for game two, and they're not playing in the rest of the series. Or this player's coming and going. Bevan Jacobs is out injured, so now Katene Clark comes into the group. It's just all over the show, and I don't have any clear ideas about the Blackcaps other than maybe this squad could be a lot younger. Although, when I think about that, then I think back to just the righteous order of Blackcaps cricket, where the older guys who are getting the opportunity in the series, they've been ticking off boxes at each kind of checkpoint of the Blackcaps pipeline. Like Nick Kelly has scored a lot of runs for New Zealand A, for example. He's already played a few ODIs. He has been one of the best domestic batters over the last 5 years. So I'm not in theory, he should be there. But if I'm trying to make this series way more interesting for myself, then let's give Matt Boyle a crack. Let's try something funky there. So that's just how I'm viewing the series. We can't really dive into it because we do have games coming this afternoon. But how are you feeling about those observations? How are you feeling about the messiness of the Blackcaps compared to the clean, crisp, competitive cricket that we're getting from the White Ferns?
Yeah, the same as what you've just said, because I watched both of the games on Sunday, and one of them was really fun and enjoyable. One of them was kind of torturous because it went wrong from the start and stayed wrong the rest of the way. And then it's like the fallout coverage of since then is so much about Blackcaps got rolled, but Mitchell Santner, but 1 for 8 from his 4 overs and critically economic, and like, yeah, they're chasing 4 and over. They didn't have to take any risks off him. Like, it's great. Those are great figures, but it's like you got to put some of that in context. But then I'm like, well, why are they talking about Mitchell Santner at all? Why aren't they talking about Mealy Kerr, who has just like scores a 50 every time she bats now in T20s, apparently, whether it's against Australia, Zimbabwe, or South Africa. Like, since she's become captain, she's just like, she might have already been the best player in the world, but she sure seems like she's playing like the best player in the world right now.
Mealy Kerr's last 6 T20 international innings, all from the start of 2025, 51 not out, strike rate of 111, 40 runs at a strike rate of 111, 66 runs at 140, 101 runs at 198, 82 runs at 158, 78 runs at 188. Now, some of them were against Zimbabwe. Oh my gosh. 3 of them were against Australia.
And I think she only batted twice against Zimbabwe, because it was the last game she dropped down the order and let someone else have a turn. I mean, that's not... You're supposed to score runs against those teams when you play against them. That's fine. But like you said, she also scored runs against Australia. She just had a fantastic, basically setting up a match winner against South Africa. There's your evidence, Your Honor. That's all you need to... Well, that's not all you need to know, is it? Because she's also bowling and taking wickets. So there's that other aspect. That's actually only half of the story there. Like, that alone makes her one of the best players in the world. And then she's also taken wickets.
Since the start of 2025, she's averaging 104 with the bat and 24 with the ball.
That's... that thing where they're like, if you want to be a true all-rounder, you've got to get your batting average above your bowling average, which is a pretty good measurement. Like, it's a loose measurement, but it's a pretty good one to look at for players who have been able to do that. In that catchment, her batting average is 80 runs better than her bowling average. There's no way in which that's not good.
Is she the greatest cricketer right now playing for New Zealand? Men or women? Because the only person who has that greatness...
How could she
not be? For the Blackcaps, like, Matt Henry, we love Matt Henry. He's so awesome, he's got a stadium named after him now. I'd need a couple more years of this Matt Henry. All format Matt Henry dominating to get into that stratosphere. Kane Williamson's the only other guy, and he doesn't seem to want to play for New Zealand. So the greatest cricketer currently in the mix for New Zealand, Blackcaps or White Ferns, is desperate to play for New Zealand, as the White Ferns captain, dropped Tereo in her announcement for the interview, and is doing like amazing stuff with bat and ball and vibes. Like, the White Ferns vibe completely changes under Mealy Kerr. We've seen it before when she stepped in as captain, and we're seeing it again. Am I missing something? Is there another... Because she's by far the best player for the White Ferns right now. Is there another black cap I'm missing?
I mean, at times, Rachin Ravindra has threatened that, but only at times, not consistently throughout all the formats and across let alone as captain. There's not. I mean, that part of that is credit to the way that the Blackcaps have this, like, I don't want to call it like next man up thing, but it's just like they're such a good team that it can be a different guy leading the match winning efforts from game to game to game, except for the most recent 2 games they played, unfortunately. Like, that is one of the strengths of the Blackcaps, is that they don't need someone to just be incredible every time, but
that doesn't impact anything. Because greatness...
It doesn't impact what we were saying. It's just saying that there's lots of good Blackcaps, and there's still a good team without someone who does that. But it also is a reason why there isn't anyone else in that conversation. Like, because there's no one else who does that each and every time across formats as well,
Regardless of team results, no one in New Zealand cricket is doing what Mealy Kerr's doing. And
Like, there's no one domestically who's doing that. You know, you got to go back to like maybe right before Devon Conway got in the Black Caps, he had that season where he was like leading run scorer in all three of the formats, like something like that at a domestic level, maybe. But there's no one doing that now. Like there's just not that. She should be the front and center of all of the New Zealand cricket coverage at the moment because that is our best player.
And obviously she isn't. Because
for reasons that you detailed before, you know, reasons why people still want to put the Black Caps as the front, at the front of a double header when the other team is far more consequential at the moment.
But even then, I did see something that was so ludicrous that I had to speak on it. I had to react to it.
Is this about all-rounders?
It's about all-rounders. Now, fair play. I'm not the silliest bugger in the world, so I'm not paying New Zealand Herald for premium content. And I could, of course, there's other ways and means to read that stuff. But I took just a snapshot of this, and it was highlighting the lack of all-rounders for the Black Caps. And that tickled my antenna because I've literally talked about the plethora, the abundance of all-rounders in New Zealand. So it's not only that, so the Black Caps are put on the pedestal. The Black Caps and everything about the Black Caps is the main event status. But whether it's the T20 kerfuffles and contracts, all the coverage about the Black Caps misses the mark. So it's like the Black Caps are put in this main event pedestal, but all the stuff that they're talking about for that main event pedestal, I don't, just doesn't apply. It's a bit weird. But so I imagine that story talking about the lack of all-rounders for the Black Caps and the issues around that, which mentioned someone it mentioned Jacob Oram. Fair play to Jacob.
It's worse than that. The list where you go through, there's in the second paragraph of that article, because I read this before I'd seen what you wrote in the newsletter as well. And I thought the same thing, because in the second paragraph of that article, it says this used to something along the lines of this used to be a great strength of Black Caps cricket in past eras, and the three examples they use are Chris Cairns, Jacob Oram, and Scott Styris. And it's specifically talking about seam bowling all-rounders as well, so which is harsh because we've got so many good spinners that have been able to the Rachin Ravindra turning himself into a spinning all-rounder at the last thing. Glenn Phillips has taken a 5 in Test cricket. Mitchell Santner is all format fantastic at the moment. Michael Bracewell, Cole McConkie at the there's a long list of the spinning ones. So you're already cherry picking if you're saying it's only a seam bowling all-rounder picture. But then if you include Scott Styris as one of your seam bowling all-rounders, he was a great player and a good all-rounder. He's an all-rounder in the way that Chris Harris and Craig McMillan and Nathan Astor were all-rounders, though. Chris Cairns was an opening bowler, Well, even Jacob Oram is pushing it, but man.
Chris Cairns is a legend. Chris Cairns is fine. He seems like a bit of a bully, but he's a legend. That's all good. Zach Foulkes will have he will have a better career than Scott Styris and Jacob Oram. Nathan Smith will have a better career than Scott Styris and Jacob Oram. They're already in the Black Caps. Josh Clarkson is in the Black Caps squad as well. There's so few all-rounders in New Zealand that Simon Keane is leading Auckland for runs and he's second for wickets. As an all-rounder, obviously. I mean, Christian Clark was selected for the Black Caps to bowl seam, and he did a pretty good job in India, series sweep, ODIs, and he scored his first 2 centuries this summer. Jock McKenzie's not playing. He chose rugby over cricket. Muhammad Abbas, he was selected for the Black Caps as a batter, and he's as an all-rounder, because he was bowling in that series. He hasn't been bowling so much this summer, but he took 5 wickets bowling left arm seam for Wellington. And he's one of the most coolest batters to watch in New Zealand. There's also Cam Paul, who isn't front and centre for Canterbury right now. He's got the same skills from the same club as Zach Folks. And of course, Luke Georgeson's one of my favourite cricketers in New Zealand. All of which I imagine was part of that all-rounder, the lack of all-rounder, insightful post from the mainstream media in New Zealand, because anyone with any knowledge of cricket in New Zealand would understand there's a lot of seam all-rounders. And as you said, like, I don't care if you're a seam all-rounder, spin all-rounder, heck, you might be Dale Phillips and you're just an all-rounder, because like your brother Glenn Phillips, you bat, you bowl spin, and you can be a wicketkeeper or add value in the field. And it's such a non-issue because other players will become all-rounders. Tim Pringle and Addy Ashok are spinners who score runs. There's Matt Boyle, who's a batter, who is now bowling more overs, kind of sometimes as Canterbury's lead spinner with his leggies. You're going to have other seamers who start to score runs. So once a bowler starts scoring runs, they're an all-rounder. Once a batter starts taking wickets, then they're an all-rounder, like Glenn Phillips, Rachin Ravindra, who are already in the team. We might have a Blackcaps team with Rachin Ravindra, Glenn Phillips, Zach Folks, and Nathan Smith in the same team. What are we doing? But that's the high-quality coverage you get of the second-tier New Zealand cricket team right now. The B side, because the White Ferns are doing great stuff and fairly interesting. Did that Blackcaps all-rounder thingamajig, did it mention, because surely it must have mentioned Zach Folks.
I mentioned a lot of Jimmy Neesham. And that was the Jimmy Neesham stuff was used as an example of like, here's a reason why it's a problem, because Jimmy Neesham's still in the T20 team, which is like, well, you can't complain that you don't have enough all-rounders and then complain that there's an all-rounder being picked. Like, he's a good player. He deserved to be in that squad. What's the problem? But it was also like, when you get to the 3/4 of the way through the thing and you get to the quotes from Gavin Larson, it's very clearly that this was one of those many examples of like, he's answering a leading question. He's not bringing this up on his own and saying this is a problem. He's been asked, are there enough all-rounders? And he's said something like, well, we always try to make sure there's good players and all the different, the different roles that we like to envisage, and, make sure there's depth in all of these different spots and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, sure, all-rounder is one that we've put some effort into, make sure that we continually produce players like that. I guess you could argue the devil's advocate thing might be that, like, a lot of the players that you mentioned there are younger players who are only just getting into Blackcaps rather than established guys. But, like, that's not really a devil's advocate, because that's just saying that those players are there.
Did that thingamajig mention Zach Folks?
Well, I don't remember word for word, so I can't say exactly, but I don't remember it.
That's it. He's 23 years old. He's already played all three formats. If you're not mentioning Zach Folks, I can't take you seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Because this dude has taken test wickets and opened the batting for Plunket Shield for Canterbury. He's right there in front of you. He plays for the Blackcaps. He was one of the most unluckiest players for that T20 World Cup squad, based on prior selections. So if he's not in your mind, where's your head at? Let's go mindfulness for you. Let's get a bit of mindfulness here. What do you got for mindfulness?
Yeah, we always need a dose of mindfulness after dipping into the newspaper. J.R.R. Tolkien via, or maybe the other way around, Samwise Gamgee via J.R.R. Tolkien. It's the job that's never started as takes longest to finish.
That's correct. Have switched back to Lord of the Rings on the audio files. So I have had a lot of Samwise Gamgee in my eardrums. Him and Frodo are on the, I think it's just finished where they're in the neighborhood of Mordor, and Frodo was taken by the orcs. So obviously Samwise is a bit in his head. He's got Schmeagol to deal with. He's got leaving Frodo behind and all this shit. So Samwise has
Orcs,
been
spiders, poison blades, all these things.
And that sounds like something. There's a lot of wisdom from those hobbits, let alone the folks you'd expect, your Gandalfs, your Aragorns, and anyone else. Like, obviously, goes without saying, Mr. Bombadil. But yes, the job that isn't started takes the longest to complete. So get that job started, because once you start it, you're closer to completing it.
And I do like that this is, whenever it's the Samwise Gamgee pockets of wisdom, they usually come from like it's his gaffer, he says. I can't remember if that's his dad or if it's like his boss, but it's the gaffer. It all comes, I think it's both. I think he like works in the family, gardening industry or whatever. But all his wisdom comes down from, the old gaffer used to tell me. This is, I think, another one of those. But yeah, I do like that idea of like the impression that like, as soon as you have the idea, get on with it. The job that's never started takes longest to finish. It's like the job is there as soon as you have the concept of it. So get started, because otherwise it's going to take forever to do,
I don't know about that. Like sometimes you need to let the idea stew a little bit, because sometimes the idea that comes to your head isn't the best idea.
The stewing, yeah, you're right. But the stewing is also perhaps part of the starting the idea. It's the process,
Yeah, if
you're not doing nothing at that point. You just, there is I don't know. It's no different than when when Samwise is cooking one of his rabbit stews or whatever. You can't just like. You do have to let it settle here and there. You got to let the water boil. You got to let the herbs impart their flavor, whatever you manage to find on the road to Mordor.
Because the good and bad ideas, they come from the same place. Whatever place you view that to be, that's the weirdest thing about being a human, is where our ideas come from, where our thoughts come from. They all come from the same place. Good ideas and bad ideas look the same. Like they're dressed and disguised when they come into your crib. And it's up to you to kind of work through that and find out what is the good idea, what's the bad idea. Because sometimes you take action on a bad idea and then you're a bad person. Like that's just how some of those things play out. Let's check in quickly with the Plunket Shield. There is a lot of awesome stuff happening in the Plunket Shield. Have you seen Thomas O'Connor bowl a cricket ball?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I've seen multiple highlight clips now of him taking 5 fizz. In fact, that was in the same game, wasn't it?
Yes. Lefty, who bowls beautiful swing, typical swing for a lefty seamer. But these deliveries, he's bowling pretty quick by the looks of it. He's like bouncing dudes out. Dudes are struggling to catch up with it. Hence, they're nicking it off on the offside and the leg side. And he's delivering Yorkers or very full deliveries at the stumps that just go straight past the bat. All of which is telling me he's bowling quick. Like maybe not 150, but he's not like 122. He's not 125. He might. And what have we noticed about the Blackcaps seamers that get into the Blackcaps? Michael Ray's playing Test cricket. He's bowling 138 k's per hour. Nathan Smith enters the Blackcaps. He's bowling 137, 136. Will O'Rourke comes onto the scene. He's bowling 145. These dudes seem to be bowling a little bit quicker than. Again, Scott Storris was bowling 120. Jacob Oram was bowling 130. Like I think there is this thing like, now sure you got your Nathan Astle moments and that type of stuff, but there's a lot of people who hold on to a nostalgia of New Zealand cricket that wasn't very good. That's the weirdest thing. Like the favourites of their pastimes just weren't that good at cricket. And I grew up with Stephen Fleming, you know? That's why we put the Nathan Astle 222 on a pedestal, because that was the defining awesome thing of our cricket fandom as children. We grew up on those players, and the current players are way better, as they should be. But to like compare them and say you want players like the previous era, well, you know what would happen? Black Caps wouldn't be that good. The Black Caps wouldn't make semi-finals and finals all the time because those players would be in the team. So let's just celebrate the new folks. And the new folks are pretty awesome at cricket, like Thomas O'Connor, who now has 16 wickets in 2 games, averaging 7.6. What's he, like 21 years old, 21-year-old lefty? Yep, that's the one. So shout out to him. Speaking of Simon Keane, he is 7th for runs overall and 5th, 6th for bowlers. Tied 5th for wickets, ranked 6th in my little rankings that I do. I mentioned Matt Boyle. He had a good week last week for Canterbury. He is 5th for runs, averaging 57. And if you're worried about young batters in New Zealand, Curtis Heafy's 4th for runs, Matt Boyle's 5th for runs. They're both averaging 58 and 57. And of course, Jacob Cummings in the mix. He's got 400 runs, averaging 55. Oh, then there's also Lachlan Stackpole, who has the 10th highest number of runs, and he's the only player with a strike rate over 100, and he's the only player with 20 plus sixes. Max Chu also scored a century. He's an emerging wicketkeeper, averaging 51.6 this season in Plunket Shield. Oh, there's this other dude, Luke Georgeson, pretty mediocre all-rounder. He is 18th for runs, averaging 69, and is also tied for 7th in wickets, averaging 29. But he's terrible. You don't want to worry about Luke Georgeson, who was also captain of Otago in his mid-20s. Anything else in Plunket Shield that I need to talk about? No. Well, aside from Rohit Gulati leading wicket taker, 27 wickets. 3 of the top 4 wicket takers are lefties. Gulati and Pringle lefty spinners, Ray Toole lefty seamer. So after Brett Randall took his 7th, Ray Toole came in the next innings, took a 5 as a lefty seamer. Leading run scorers, Nichols, Schmullian and Cooper. They're all there as really good mature batters. And because we mentioned him with the Black Caps, Michael Ray, 17 wickets, averaging 27.3. So shout out to Aotearoa Cricket and our fantastic depth, specifically all-rounders, but also elite all-rounders, because Zach Foulkes, Nathan Smith hasn't played T20 internationals, but he's almost an all-format all-rounder. Zach Foulkes is an all-format all-rounder at 23 years old. I'm pretty sure he's averaging under 30 with the ball in all 3 formats. T20 strike rate of 148 or something like, he's pretty crap as well. Basketball. I did see news that Mr. Judd Flavell won't be the next Breakers coach. So, but he will stay as the Tall Blacks coach, right?
I assume so. They didn't say anything about that, but he is leaving the Breakers and he has taken a job in Japan with a team from the 2nd division in Japan, but they've just been promoted, so he'll be coaching them in the 1st division next season, whenever that is. And I mean, I have to think that that Breakers job was like there for the taking. At the very, he applied for it last time. He's just spent a season as the assistant. The coach who underperformed has left, and the position is vacant, and he's already got that relationship with the club. He's had many years as an assistant at multiple different teams. Like, I don't really know that you're going to find a better candidate. Championship winner at the New Zealand level within the last few years as well with Canterbury. Like, he he was there, but I also know that he's not the first Breakers coach to leave and get a job in Japan, because Moni Mayor did that while he was still under contract, and that's where Puli Hinade ended up for. I think he's still there, in fact, and maybe there's he might be a candidate as someone if he's willing to come back. Para Cameron as well, having been a past All Blacks coach, maybe as someone, or might want to look at like the current crop of assistants that are going around, because Aaron Young, probably the standout, having spent the last, I think, 3 years with Perth. We've seen a lot of him and the New Zealand level as a head coach as well. Like, there are a lot of good Kiwi coaches, but Judd Flavell was like the obvious pick for the to be the next Breakers head coach, but he's opted for a gig in Japan instead, where I would imagine he's probably getting paid like 3 or 4 times as much what he would get for the Breakers. So that's completely understandable. And I think everyone else would do the same in that situation. And it's still a like good, prestigious job as well, coaching in the Japanese top division.
And like it seems like that because he's still going to be Tall Blacks coach, we believe, and whether it was coaching Canterbury, then being part of the Breakers staff, I think the best thing for him is to get that experience overseas. Like he's going to go coach in Japan, pick up some new things, some international flavor on how to coach basketball, and that's going to help the Tall Blacks, I believe. So like I'm not like the best thing for Judd Flavell as Tall Blacks coach, because you've talked about it before. If he's Breakers coach, then he might not be the Tall Blacks coach. But if he wants to stay as the Tall Blacks coach, he can get a job overseas, learn, grow, develop, and maintain that Tall Blacks coaching position. So this seems, and make a lot of money, more money. So it seems like the best thing for him is how it's played out. And as you said, there's no shortage of Kiwi candidates for the Breakers if they want a Kiwi. They don't have to have a Kiwi. I don't know how good the last couple overseas players, coaches have been. And of course, one of those coaches comes from a country that is involved in international wars. So I don't really like that vibe, but he's no longer here. So that's all good. It will be interesting to see who the Breakers hire in that position because they need to win games. That is the most important thing for the Breakers right now. They've kind of dipped off. Like there was some Breakers buzz, or there was Breakers buzz obviously during their dynasty. It fell away. They've never really been able to get to those heights again as far as like just the hype and enthusiasm around the Breakers. They need to win games. That's the most important thing for the Breakers right now, and they need a coach who's going to win games as a coach. Also needing a win are the Tall Ferns, who have lost all 4 of their games at the World Cup qualifying tournament. Have they played Puerto Rico yet? Because you wrote this yesterday.
They're playing them tomorrow. So I think it's a 1 p.m. kickoff, tip-off, which is the last game of the tournament, because Puerto Rico are hosts, so they've got sort of like the prime time thing there. And there is a chance that by the time that game starts, we'll have already been eliminated. If Senegal beat Italy in the game like immediately beforehand. If not, then Italy beating Senegal by as much as possible would be nice. There is a limit because we have to overtake Senegal on points and points differential, and we have to overtake Puerto Rico. So there is like a limit of I think we have to win by at least 17 points to overtake Puerto Rico in the first place. And if Italy wins by that much or more against Senegal, something along those lines, then we would also overtake them. If it's a case of like Italy only win by a little bit, we might have to win by more than 17 to overtake Senegal as well as Puerto Rico. So it's very unlikely for a team whose top score at this tournament is 51 points. So I'm not banking on that, but hopefully they'll at least have something to play for and maybe can finish it off on a win, something like that would be nice.
Is this disappointing? Is it normal? How should we feel about the Tall Ferns? Because as you said, 50 points, 51, 45, 46. They've conceded over 60 points in all 4 games. They've conceded 70 plus points in 3 of the 4 games. let's be honest, they've been smoked in all 4 games, and how, like, because it is New Zealand in international basketball, we shouldn't really be factors in these tournaments. We want to be, and it's like same with all these other New Zealand national teams where it's like it feels like we might be able to do something, but then there are also the realities of Aotearoa as a sporting nation in genuinely global sports like basketball. How should we feel about it? How do you feel
I
about
think
it? Sorry.
I think it's fair to be disappointed, because this was probably the best chance they've had to qualify for a World Cup in a long time. And the last time they made a World Cup, while the Tall Blacks make them all the time, the Tall Ferns last made a World Cup for the only time they've ever made a World Cup, and I think it's 1992, like, more than 30 years ago. The Olympics, they have had a couple of instances since then where it's like, because Australia won the Olympics at one point, so they qualified for the, oh no, that was Australia won the World Championship, so qualified for the Olympics the next year, something like that. Automatically, and left a spot open. And then there was the Sydney Olympics where they hosted it, which left the Oceania spot open. So, and then there was another time, I think 2008 is the most recent time we made a major tournament. That was the Olympics as well. That was where I think they just had 2 teams from Oceania were allowed in. So, and nowadays Oceania has been swallowed into the Asia Confederation. So it's not, there's sort of sometimes it counts for Oceania and sometimes it doesn't. But point being, the other times we've made world tournaments in past eras, because the last time they made a world tournament, they had a young point guard called Susie Bates playing for them. She scored like 10,000 international cricket runs since then. That, like, there's been other circumstances, usually from Australia's eligibility, that have helped us get there in the past. So it's never been a thing that the Tall Ferns have been able to do comfortably or without help. But this was like this World Cup qualifying type tournament, like you only had to finish in the top 4 out of the 6 teams, and we were the 5th ranked team. So it was like if you could beat Italy or Puerto Rico, Senegal with a team below us, then 2 wins out of 5 there is going to be enough to put you through. As we've just explained, there might even be a chance they can get through with 1 win if the points differential breaks out in their favor. This was a good opportunity, but right from the start, it was like, this is not the squad that's going to get it done, unfortunately. Like, there's just, I don't know where a lot of their senior players are who are playing professionally. I guess a lot of them, sad state of women's basketball, I guess, and a lot of women's sports, is that a lot of those players probably have day jobs, in between New Zealand NBL seasons, probably alongside New Zealand NBL seasons. Well, I know that's the case in the women's A-League football. So it's probably the case in the basketball stuff as well, where there are shorter seasons. Like, there might have just been players unable to get there. It's also the state of the team at the moment that 4 or 5 maybe of our best players who would be in a top strength 12 are playing college basketball at the moment. Charlie Sledger-Walker, front and center. Players like Lauren Whitaker would probably be there. Tori Tamilo would be a good chance. Bailey Flavell, Maya Jones, like a lot of players having fantastic seasons there, but it's March Madness. They're not available. They're not going to be released. The timing of this tournament hasn't helped, and there's always going to be some injuries and stuff. So it's just, they went to this tournament with a squad that had 3 debutantes, which had, before the tournament started, the highest capped player internationally was Taylor Dalton with 18 appearances. So there wasn't a single player in the squad who had played 20 games for the Tall Ferns. And we've just seen that. Like, there's been good individual performances, but they're just not as good as the teams they've played against. Lots of turnovers, lots of missed buckets, and lots of lost games, sadly.
The status of the players in March Madness tells a story for the Tall Ferns. So, like, how should we feel about the Tall Ferns losing all 4 games by considerable margins? Well, it's not their best team. Like, it can just be narrowed down to that. Like, you're trying to compete on an international level without your best team. That's what's going to happen. So that seems all right. Like, no issues there.
Well, only in that, like, they are also missing a lot of players like Tara Reid, Ezra McGoldrick, Patina Davison, like players who could have been those veterans to help them out I don't know if they're all injured conveniently at the exact same time, or if this is where day jobs come into the matter or whatever. Like there is something in that. But yeah, it's not even close to our best team. And that American team that we played against had Caitlin Clark, had Angel Reese, had Kelsey Plum, had Paige Bookers. Like that was stacked side. And funnily enough, I actually thought that was the best performance of the four that they've played was against the best teams. So it would have been nice if they'd been able to play that game first up. But yeah, so it goes. Sean Rabati's been good though.
So the best,
Alatofiano,
the
solid,
best,
you know,
the best younger players weren't there, and the best older players weren't there. Like this, it's hard
pretty
to,
much.
yeah.
It'd be like if the Black Caps sent the team they've got right now playing against South Africa to the World Cup, you know, as opposed to having their best team at the World Cup, and then this is just whatever this is.
The Warriors had another win in the NRL, and they had 3 wins against the Canberra Raiders this weekend in the top 3 grades: NRL, New South Wales Cup, and Jersey Flegg under-21s. That means the Warriors are 5-6 across those 3 grades to start this season. The only loss being a New South Wales Cup loss against the Roosters in round 1. They bounced back for a big win over the Raiders. The other 2 teams, the NRL team and the under-21s, have won both of their games. And I remember talking a few weeks ago saying that I'd seen Bishop Neal do a few chips as a forward. Like chip and chase. The biggest dude on the field, I've seen him do chip and chases a few times for the under-17s and the under-19s. This week, or last weekend against the Raiders, he scored a try and had a try assist from a line break, passes it inside to Harry Inch as a winger. So like the Warriors NRL team, they got this little early shift. It's quite funny because most of the time they might be shifting to Kurt Capewell. So they do this early shift, Kurt Capewell standing out on the wing, Kurt Capewell gets the ball, he'll try and make a line break, he gets tackled because he's not very fast. Obviously, best case scenario, you're doing that for Jacob Laban, you're doing that for Leka Halasima, or you're doing it for Bishop Neal. And he's just, for a couple of those tries, he's out on the wing, they just get him the ball. One of them, he just ran past everyone, a little bit of contact, and then burst through the hole to score. The second one, he just sprints down the sideline, gets to the fullback, and passes it inside. So, if you don't know about Bishop Neal, you have to know about Bishop Neal. This dude is one of the best emerging players from Aotearoa, full stop, let alone the Warriors system. Most importantly, he's doing this now in the under-21s team. So he was generating buzz as a youngster coming out of Canterbury, but in the Warriors system, he started in the under-17s. I think his couple of games for the under-19s earlier this year were his first under-19 games, and now he's doing it all the same stuff for the under-21s team. And the under-21s team is a really fun team. It's an excellent team. So I'm curious how that overlaps with the New South Wales Cup team. We have seen the New South Wales Cup team add a few players recently, or just have new players playing for their team, all of which had just looked like really smart decisions. We've talked about that in our YouTube videos last week. But Brandon Norris on the wing for the Warriors under-21s, he will play New South Wales Cup this year. He's a very, very fast Aussie. I mean, you got Jack Thompson, you got Harry Inch. They're an awesome halves combination. And there's just so many good players in this under-21s team. You do have players like Tyson Hansen, Gordon Afoa, Desmond Laban, and Bishop Neal, who have all moved up from the under-19s team to play under-21s. But I think that it's hard to say that one team is the most fun Warriors team right now, because they're all pretty fun, considering that the New South Wales Cup team, where do you begin? Jet Cleary's pretty good at rugby league. Luke Hansen's all good. We got Kalis Putoko in the centres. He's lively. You got a bit of a Fox Memorial connection with Sam Waterworth in the middle forwards and Josh Tanielu. He started at centre in this game coming out of Bay Roskell. They signed an Aussie prop, Cooper Page Wilson, who's just your big typical Aussie forward. You got a young hooker in Makaya Tafua playing 70 plus minutes. You got the De La Salle boys, Kalis Fatialofa, Christian Sukuvea, Tepatasi Laumali'i, and Rodney Tuipolotuvea. They're very interesting. And you got the small forward package, which involves Cassius Tia, who has joined the Warriors he joined them for this game at least. And he played a little bit in the halves and a little bit at small forward against the Raiders in New South Wales Cup. Jacob Auloa, also another young dummy half, he played most of his minutes at small forward. All of which is to say there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in that New South Wales Cup team, let alone having two really good wingers as your backup wingers in Khan Pereira and Hazen Malars. So whatever you're seeing in the NRL Warriors right now, the most important thing I'd say is that it's happening in the two grades below that as well. Like, not only is there good performances generally overall, but you're seeing really smart signings, you're seeing really impressive player development, because I've talked about Hohepa Chandler in recent weeks as well. He's another smart signing, a smart addition to the Warriors system coming out of Tauranga Boys High School First 15 and Premier Rugby in that area as well. So all three of these teams have smart signings. They're playing good football. They have incredible talent. Incredible. Like, same we're talking about the Blackcaps. We're going to talk a lot about football. How old's Vasilich?
I think he's still 17.
So he's made
He went
his
to the under-17 World Cup last year.
So he's made his A-League debut. Like, we got incredible talent in all these sports on the rise. But Jack Thompson's crazy for the Warriors. And he's a half from Australia. And he's behind Jet Cleary and Luke Hansen. Let alone Harry Inch, who's also crazy. Like, Harry Inch is ridiculous as a rugby league number 6 moving from rugby union. So you got the talent. Getting back to what I was originally saying about the threads across all three teams, there's so much cool stuff. And whatever idea you think about for the NRL team, you can probably go through New South Wales Cup and under 21s and say that idea is also there in those grades, which, now that I think about it, is a fantastic reflection of where the Warriors system is at. Another little comparison to football, we've talked before about the difference between Auckland FC and the Phoenix and how their systems look right now. Auckland FC, everything's aligned towards A-League football. I don't know if they'll have the same, this idea from the NRL team is present in their other two grades, but that might not be so clear and obvious for the Wellington Phoenix, let alone other NRL teams. Because some NRL teams, they got no idea what's happening for their NRL team, let alone how that flows down to New South Wales Cup, let alone under 21s. Some NRL teams, they can't even play good footy. Credit to your Dragons, you did play some good footy in the first 2 rounds, so I don't want to put your Dragons on blast, but there's other teams, and maybe Todd Payton might have been, because remember, everyone wanted Todd Payton as Warriors coach. Yeah, nah. I don't even want you as an assistant. What are we doing here? For some reason, I got Tana Umaga on my mind, and I was thinking about that Blues versus Moana game, and I don't know, Tana was doing some big talking, and that's right, that's cool. Sure, I agree with him about how the Blues or other people treat Moana. But you might want to win some games, because you're not winning games as coach. And that goes back to what I was saying before, but now I'm seeing him as the There's like he might be the All Blacks assistant coach. Like Tanah, we all love Tanah. Tanah Shmana, Tanah Boyd. We all love Tanah, former rugby league player. But Tanah Umaga as coach, you got to win some games, bro. All that matters is if you win some games. Don't know how I got there, but I got there. So, again, Todd Payton, you might want to win some games, bro, because Andrew Webster makes you look like a terrible coach. And thank Jah that Andrew Webster is the Warriors coach right now, because him and Andrew McFadden, who was there right beside Cameron George when Cameron George was giving it to the Raiders players, which was hilarious. Andrew McFadden's built this, and it's obviously they're working together, Webster and McFadden, but they have put the Warriors in a position that is all we have ever wanted as people with an interest in the Warriors. And we've talked about that before, like they're a solid top 8 team. They got a good New South Wales Cup team, top 4 in 3 consecutive seasons, New South Wales Camp Championship, State Championship, NRL success, good young players and all that stuff. Since then, the Warriors are 5 and 6 in their top 3 grades to start this season. So, gratitude. Shout out to the Warriors. Shout out to Mount Smart. The win against the Roosters, we did ask if they could continue with their helter-skelter offloading from round 1. They didn't. Because it was wet. Because it was rainy. And they still won. They still scored 40 points. And that was the platform for their success. So we've seen the Warriors team win in 2 very different styles, but maintain their fundamentals, good defense, which is an interesting thing to think about. Like good defense, you can't just say it's tackling, right? Like, because the missed tackles made, that doesn't mean good defense. You can miss 2 tackles and concede 50 points. So then you're like watching the Warriors and you're thinking like, what's good defense for the Warriors? And the way I think about it is they're smashing blokes. So there's aggressive contact. If you're making aggressive contact, or at least you got the intention to make aggressive contact, that's your starting point. Then you got to win the ruck. So you can win the ruck without aggressive contact, but it helps to have aggressive contact. But that's all the wrestling and slowing down the ruck, because I don't know if you're watching your Dragons intently or like just bad NRL teams, they have no ruck control. So the speed of the play, the ball is just too fast. You're plowing downfield. You're on the back foot. You can't do anything with your defense if you're losing the ruck. The Warriors are winning the ruck with big contact and wrestling, all of which to me comes under James Fisher-Harris. James Fisher-Harris has had more run meters this season, which is an interesting addition to what he's been doing at the Warriors, because this is one of his highest meters per game of his career, 154 meters per game this year. Only season higher was 2020 with the Panthers, 179. Fisher-Harris is doing great stuff with the footy, but Fisher-Harris is all defense. He's leading the contact. He's leading the ruck control. But defense also involves organization. And the interesting thing about the Roosters game is we saw the same defensive execution as far as organization, making your tackles, being there to stop the ball with 2 different fullbacks. If you're putting Nickel Clockstar in at number 6 or in at center, your defense is going to stay the same, maybe get a little bit better, because Nickel Clockstar is an awesome defender. So that's all going to stay the same. But then at fullback, if you're putting Taintua Picky at fullback, you might think you're losing a bit of guidance, a little bit of organization, a little bit of communication, and he's not has bigger body as Nickel Clockstar, so he might not be able to make a tackle to stop a try, because the fullback needs to be there it's a tough job for the fullback because they kind of need to be in the defensive line to add a number, but then you got to get across behind the defensive line for a grubber, or you got to be the dude in the corner to stop the try. Guess what? Tanah Boyd did it all. And if you got a really good fullback, I think that helps out your edge defense really well as well, because you're organizing players. They know what they're prepared. They're prepared for what might be coming in their direction because the fullback's telling them. And if there is maybe a weakness between Nickel Clockstar at fullback, move into Tanah Boyd, I reckon it's going to be defensively. But that wasn't evident against the Roosters. So it's like good defense requires a few different things, and the Warriors are showing positive signs in all aspects of those different things that make up defense. And that includes the penalties conceded. I don't have like NRL.com. They love a set restart, but they don't love stats about set restarts because it's not part of their statistical menu, but they do have penalties conceded. Warriors are 14th. Well, let's say 14th out of 15 teams who have played twice. 7 penalties conceded, and like the Dragons have conceded 13 penalties. The Roosters 16, Broncos 16, Raiders 13. Twice as many penalties at least as the Warriors. So again, if you can slow down the ruck without conceding a penalty, great defense. And we've seen the Warriors have 2 pretty clear styles. Offloading, no offloading, although they still love a pass, they still want a dummy pass and shift the footy to their edges. But one of the things that has stayed the same, high completion rate, few penalties conceded, and pretty solid defense that to me starts with just physical intensity. And I don't think we've really seen that from the Warriors too often before.
No, and I mean, something we did see from the Warriors last year was they played at Mount Smart against the Raiders in a wet weather game. Like, it poured down with rain that day as well, more so than this one probably. And they lost I think it was a fairly low scoring game. Certainly they didn't score many tries. So to have very, very similar conditions for a rematch with the same opponent less than 12 months later, without going through any major personnel changes, the Raiders have had 1 or 2, specifically losing a halfback to a rival team is an element there on their side of things. But the Warriors haven't had an overhaul or anything like that from last season to this, and in very similar conditions against the same team, sort of very, very different outcome, where not only did they flip the result and win, but they put on points. And like you explained there, they put on points in the previous round as well, and a lot of that was because they kept moving the ball a lot with a lot of offloads and here, and conditions that weren't so conducive to that, they still put on a lot of points without having to take the risks of the extra offloads and all this. And I think in both games they've had sort of, I'm sure there was something in the Roosters game as well, wasn't there, where there was a player got injured and you got to reshuffle or something. Certainly they had that in this Raiders game. So maybe there wasn't in the Roosters. I can't remember. It would pop to my head if there was. But there's a lot of good signs for 2 weeks of footy.
I don't know if anything did happen against the Roosters, but who cares? Because we saw it last season. We've seen it throughout the Warriors under Andrew Webster, that they can deal with injuries. And it's you can fantasize about your favorite starting team all you want, but you're going to have injured players, right? You're going to have someone who is out for the season. You're going to have someone who's out for 6 weeks. You're going to have someone who's on concussion. You're going to have players most games who miss game time in the game because of injury. This one, the Warriors lost Kurt Capewell before kickoff, then Chanel Harris-Tavita mid-game, early in the game. There was no effect. There was no impact. That's because you're so deep and so versatile in your squad. Because another thing I missed in the defensive stuff was mobility. And that's when you get into the Dally M leader right now, Jackson Ford, who is leading all NRL players for Dally M votes. So if the Dally M award was to be announced right now, Jackson Ford would be the best player in the NRL. Which, to me, just, like, fair play to Jackson Ford, but it kind of tells you how ridiculous the Dally M is, even though it's viewed as this, like, super duper prestigious award. I don't really know if it does a great job of, like, highlighting the best players in each game, let alone who's having the best season. But Jackson Ford is kind of sums up the mobility stuff, because he's just going to get across the park. And Fisher Harris is going to get across the park. These dudes can cover space. Obviously, Aaron Clark is fast and mobile, and all the youngsters are mobile as well, because that's why they're playing NRL. Like Waimonga, Tanah Smith, Eddie Iramia Toiava. Obviously, we all know about Leka Halasima, but the young forwards aren't. This is something that did stand out about Cooper Page-Wilson. He's a bigger body, and he doesn't have the same mobility, agility that we have in the young forwards at the Warriors. No disrespect to him, and he can play NRL because he's a big body, he's a hard worker, but it stood out compared to the young forwards, because the young forwards are all pretty quick for forwards. They're all agile, they're all mobile, and that's something that is going to help you defensively. And that is what Jackson Ford's game is built upon. But as we've talked about in recent seasons, he's added a bit of oomph to his go forward. And yeah, he's playing well. Is he the best player in the NRL? I don't know. He's playing well and he's doing his job for the Warriors. I don't even know if he's the best Warriors player. Because I don't really see any reason why James Fisher-Harris isn't the best Warriors player. You know, he's playing less minutes than Jackson Ford, but if you're getting into the nitty-gritty of rugby league, like James Fisher-Harris is doing an excellent job. But you could make a solid case for a lot of different players in that Warriors team, and obviously we haven't talked about Tanah Boyd yet, but he's doing all right. So that's good stuff for him. My favourite thing for the Warriors, though, is that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck doesn't have a tackle break this season. Not one. He had none versus the Raiders, and let's pick out Jacob Laban had one, Tanah Boyd had one, Adam Pompey had one, Aaron Clark had one, Dimitri Waimonga had one, let alone Tanah Smith had two, James Fisher-Harris had two, Tuivasa-Sheck had none, which I find insane, because this is Mr. Tackle Breaker. This is the greatest sidestepper ever. And he doesn't have a tackle break to start the season, but he's doing his job for the team, and that's all good, so we're not too worried about it. The Warriors play the Knights this weekend. I was looking forward to a Francis Manulelua debut for the Knights, but Callum Pond got injured, Dylan Brown got injured, and I think that that changed their plans as far as their rotations. But the Knights were awesome in getting the win without those players, and I'm curious to see how the Knights team is named for this game against the Warriors on Saturday evening. We must have New South Wales Cup in Newcastle as well. Yes, beforehand. So I'm curious about that Knights team because some of their depth players, like you might see Manu Leilua make his debut against the Warriors. He did play some junior footy for the Warriors back in the day. He might get a crack because of those injuries. Obviously, Kiwis superstar Kalen Ponga, that's a bummer for him and a bummer for Dylan Brown because they were playing very well. But of course, we got some funk for the Warriors because Harris Tavita is probably not going to be available. So what are the options in the halves for the Warriors? Best option is probably Nickel Clockstar and Tanah Boyd with Tuau Piki at fullback. I think that is the best option. Like, yes, Luke Hanson's good. Yes, Jet Cleary's good. The best option to win a game of NRL right now is Nickel Clockstar and Tanah Boyd. And that is easier to do because Tanah Boyd showed he can win a game without a kind of genuine halves partner. Nickel Clockstar is going to run the ball when he needs to. He's going to be very good defensively, shutting down that edge. He's probably not going to have a kick. He didn't have a kick against the Raiders. He might have a kick if he's preparing to play in the halves. He's going to do his job as a half. But it's a different job to Harris Tavita or Luke Metcalf in a half position as well. That is still a recipe for winning an NRL game right now, though. Because Nickel Clockstar will run the ball, like he's going to do his job. Also because Tanah Boyd is full of confidence. He can take on the kicking responsibility to have the vast majority of kicks. He's eager runner right now, which is crucial to this mixture. And he is a classical halfback who has grown up with the organizational style that you need, especially in this position where your halves partner may not be a pure half like Nickel Clockstar. And then you can still have like Luke Hanson on the extended bench, and it's all good. But I don't like Andrew Webster's never made drastic decisions. He's always gone for the safer, reliable NRL decision. And an easy way to think about it is who's Andrew Webster going to trust defensively? Luke Hanson or Nickel Clockstar? It's pretty obvious. So who's Andrew Webster's going to trust more to do their job in the other capacities is going to be Nickel Clockstar. Sometimes that decision-making process can be an issue. I don't really have any problems with it right now. So it'll be a very fun game between the Warriors and the Knights. The Knights are looking good. They do have a system full of Kiwi NRL players as well. If we go into like New South Wales Cup, Manu Leilua has been playing New South Wales Cup. Elijah Salisa Leon Moana from Southern Cross Campus, he's in New South Wales Cup. They've also got Tamakai Moana Whare Aurere from Te Puke. He's moved up their system to play New South Wales Cup right now. And I'll just have a quick squiz at their Jersey Flegg team who won against the Sea Eagles on the weekend. Former Warriors legend Talon Egan at fullback. But they also had Xavier Lynch at centre. He's from Christchurch. Sosaya Latu on the wing. Mangere East Jr. Tikayo Cranwell starting prop and captain. He's from Christchurch. And Lennox Easthope from Wellington is on their bench for that win. So the Knights love Aotearoa. That was on the rise with Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown in the NRL team as well, but they won't be playing against the Warriors. So this is going to be a very, very fun matchup, and I'm sure you're having fun watching the Dragons as well.
It was fun for 60-odd minutes against the Storm. That was
you like that.
They played quite well
stuff, don't you? Like
to that extent. Yeah.
Whenever we're talking about Test cricket or the football games, you do love like we're in a good position at this moment, and then I've hit back a few times and been like, all that matters is the end result. And the end result for the Dragons,
well,
it doesn't seem to come.
No, and that was the same last year as well, where it's like the
Mm.
amount of one possession defeats they had, where it's like one extra try wins you this game, or one that like that one defensive stand that you couldn't withhold. But it's a little bit different against the Storm because it was like the end result was the result I was expecting the entire time. So it's just a matter of like watching the Tall Ferns against USA. Well, how long is this going to take until they blow it out? For the Tall Ferns, they held on about half of the first quarter, which was pretty good. I thought they would be, 20-3 down by that point. They weren't. They were down like 12-11 at one stage, and USA took a timeout. And the USA coach was having a whine at his players about like these guys are working harder than you. They're being more physical than you. You gotta get into this game and up the intensity. And that actually worked when he said that. There wasn't a moment like that in the Dragons Storm game, but there was a bunch of errors from the Dragons once they started to get tired after trying to keep up with the Storm for an hour of the game, and then they got blown over at the end. And there was a really good performance from Will Warbrick in there too.
Moses Leo as well. Can't overlook him.
Yep. He
Another former New
Sevens
Zealand
legend.
Sevens player who I think Moses Leo could be in the mix for Samoa's squad. Like he could play for the Kiwis. I think the Kiwis are pretty well stocked, and to me, Moses Leo is an international rugby league player. He's got that talent. Um, I mean, the tricky thing is for the Kiwis is trying to get like a top tier narrowed down because you got your Will Warbricks, your Dylan Waitanes, the Lesniaks, your Jermaine Osaka, your Ronaldo Molitalos. There's a lot of players who are playing well who should be in the mix. So, is there like I do want to like the Dragons would love to have Jack Thompson or Harry Inch or Jet Cleary, probably even Luke Hansen. I I get that the Dragons will have good junior players in their system. I the last time they had those like that kind of combination of really good players in their system was Tyrell Sloan, Tom Amone, and Jaden Sullivan. That kind of sums up the Dragons, to be honest. Like none of them really kicked on for the Dragons in the NRL tier. Like without intricate knowledge of the Dragons juniors that are in the system, I'm pretty confident that they would be happy to have Jack Thompson, let alone Harry Inch or anyone else in their system.
Yeah, I think that seems safe to say, considering they don't really have a decent half in their first grade team at the moment.
Tanah Boyd. Would you rather have Tanah Boyd or Flanagan, the coach?
Or Atkinson. Yeah, Tanah Boyd can coach. There we go. What does his dad do? Is he
No, but like, who cares about Atkinson? Like, who cares about Atkinson?
well, that's the straight swap for halfback. But
Well,
either way, Tanah Boyd is probably he's the more experienced NRL player, and he's probably he hasn't played as many games, I don't think, as Flanagan, but he's better. He's probably won more. I don't know.
Oh, so Kyle Flanagan's your razzle dazzle 5'8".
Yeah, didn't you know?
Yeah.
For the 0-2 Dragons.
Yeah, sorry. I assumed that he was the like stock standard halfback.
Last year he was. Then they signed a halfback who was fringe first grade halfback for a couple of years at the Sharks. So he comes in to be the superstar halfback signing. And of course Flanagan has to be in there somewhere, so he shifts to 5'8", and they drop the other dude who was playing 5'8" last year.
So let's ignore Daniel Atkinson. Let's say Kyle Flanagan's your halfback. Surely Tanah Boyd ahead of Kyle Flanagan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So even without a podcast that has a Warriors bias to it, I think if you found a St. George podcast with a bunch of Hardy Dragons fans, probably say the same thing. I don't think Flanagan is the most popular character amongst the fan base for obvious reasons of you're the son of the coach who plays every single week for a team that keeps losing.
Who is Lachlan Bayliss?
He's an Olympian for a Kiwi football Olympian who plays for the Newcastle Jets. He is born in Australia, raised in Australia, pretty Australian, but he does have a Kiwi father who his father's actually passed away as well, so a couple of years ago. So that was a I'm not sure if I'm not sure when that was. I don't know if he got to see him go to the Olympics with the Ollie Whites a couple of years ago, where he was, I think, he might have been a late call up, unless that was Liam Gillian. I forget who. Someone got caught up late because someone else got injured. I forget, but he did go to that Olympic Games and he did play, and so that got him on the scene with the sort of wider New Zealand stocks. Haven't like he's sort of fringe for Newcastle for a couple of years. It's really only in the last couple of months that he's suddenly had this massive burst of form as Newcastle have gotten really good, and he's been allowed to play further forward as a more attacking midfielder. He's had this burst of goals. He's been brilliant for them. Like he's scored some wonderful stuff. He's been influential in a lot of their victories, a lot of their good form. And that has gotten him into the wider All Whites mix now. And he's been selected at a time where for this upcoming FIFA series, I think best case scenario, Darren Baisley would be just like picking a shadow version of his intended World Cup squad, and he would get those guys out there for match practice and working on trying to win some games. Um, he's still picked the best available squad. It's just that it's not the shadow version of his World Cup squad because there are a lot of injuries. But the flip side of that is it does open up the door for someone who has been in really good club form, albeit in the A League. Like there are guys doing better stuff at higher levels, sure, but it is like Jesse Randall is another example of someone who, like, if you're playing regularly in the A League and you're like dominating, you scoring goals or you're keeping a bunch of clean sheets or whatever, that is going to get you into All Whites consideration. You might have to wait one or two windows just for the opening to be there in the squad for what is a very strong and pretty deep squad at the moment that the All Whites have been able to put together. But this is Bayliss's opportunity. I don't think there's room for him to get into the World Cup, but there are ways in which maybe, like if they decide to pick an extra midfielder, or obviously if there's an injury as well for someone who is unable to go to the tournament, then you start looking outside the top 26. He's nudging his way fairly close, so it's a deserved call up for him. It's a nice like reward to show that, as Baisley said, we're about announcing the squad. Like if you are putting in the work for your clubs and having those kinds of performances, I want to at least give you a chance. I've been telling players like the better you play for your clubs, the more likely you are to get in. So if someone's playing awesome for his club, he's going to try find a way to get that guy in there. This is Bayliss's opportunity, and it'll it'll be fun to see how he goes. I don't really know where I don't see him starting games or anything like this, but I'm sure he'll get a debut at some point over the games against Finland and Chile coming up.
Lachlan Bayliss does seem like he's from Darwin, which is up in the Northern Territory of Australia. Then he went to the Mariners and entered their system before joining the Newcastle Jets.
And he has a slightly older brother, James Bayliss, as well, who's currently playing Overseas Pro League for Auckland FC. Is part of the story there. Another New Zealand connection, albeit a club one.
Well, another New Zealand connection is Brandon Norris for the Warriors, is also from the Darwin area. This is like Palmerston City. To anyone outside of Darwin is probably part of Darwin. But he's a Northern Sharks Rugby League junior, and Northern Sharks are based in Palmerston City, which is part of the wider Darwin area in the Northern Territory. So the Warriors have an Aussie from the Northern Territory at Mount Smart Stadium, and the All Whites have an Aussie from Darwin representing Aotearoa. So that's good stuff there for the Northern Territory Kiwi connection. An area we don't talk a lot about, but they're doing some good stuff for Aotearoa. How about that? Shout out to the Northern Territory Kiwi connection. So yes, Lachlan Bayliss is in the All White squad. It does seem like he's the only kind of funky, fresh player in that squad, and it's a cool squad. I there is this thing that's, and it's, again, if we're going back to how other people talk about Kiwi sports, like, I don't know, you see like the word depleted used a lot, or injury crisis, and those type of words used to describe some Kiwi sports teams. It's uh, like that's just part of the sport, and all these teams have so much more depth than we've ever had before. So you like, I now for the All Whites, of course, their injury crisis is aiming towards a World Cup. I don't know if I'm too worried about any All Whites injuries.
Do you mean specifically the ones we have, or you just in general, anyone could get injured and they can cover it?
Like a combination. Obviously Chris Wood's out injured right now, and most people would say, "Oh, you don't have Chris Wood, you're not going to win a game at the World Cup." That we've talked about that before, and we'll keep talking about it because I'm not worried. Like, Chris Wood is New Zealand's best player. He is the only player playing at that level in the world, but he's not playing at that level right now. And he hasn't been playing to his best level for a while. And like, if the All Whites are going to win a game or two or three or do something interesting at this World Cup, it's going to be because Elijah Just is still being awesome. It's going to be because, well, this is a bit weird. You got Ben Old listed at left wing here.
Yeah, well, he did say when he did a press conference a couple of weeks ago for the French media, which was nice that he spoke in English and then had a French translator for them. But because he was speaking in English, I could understand what he said.
It
So
was, it was
I could
speaking
I could
directly to you.
He must have been. But he did say when he moved to left back, he called up Darren Baisley and was like, "Look, they're asking me, can I fill into this position? What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, I need you as the left wing for the All Whites, but anything you can do to play more minutes at your club level that'll get you in there consistently is good for us. So do what you got to do, but don't worry that I'm going to like stop thinking of you as a potential winger for the All Whites." And they do need him as a left wing. Jesse Randall has helped that a lot, but Jesse Randall hasn't yet played outside the A-League, whereas Ben Old has played in the top two divisions of France. So that is still Old will probably start and Randall comes on for him for the last 20 minutes kind of thing, but they do still need him there. And they've picked James McGarry as a backup, which hints that they're not looking at that, but it's an option.
But
It's something that wasn't an option before, but it is an option. He could play there because he's been good at left back. That's the thing. He's not just filling in. He's now their top choice guy. And the dude who was starting at left back before, who got injured, for him to take that opportunity, has played like 10 minutes in the last 2 months since he got back from injury because Ben Old's keeping him out of the team.
He's probably not going to be selected ahead of the best crosser in world football, Franny de Vries or Libby Kakache. But the point is that if the All Whites are going to do something interesting, Ben Old's going to be awesome. Elijah Just is going to be awesome. Bell and Stamenic are going to be awesome. It's not like those players are just going to be mediocre and then Chris Wood's going to save the day. I don't see that as the realistic scenario. The realistic scenario is the team and all their players are fantastic. People come away from the World Cup thinking, who the fuck is Tyler Bindon and Finn Sermon, because they might be a sneaky awesome centre-back pairing at the World Cup. Like, if the All Whites are going to be awesome at the World Cup, so many other players are going to be in the spotlight kind of instead of Chris Wood. Like, that is the forecast I have for the All Whites. So, like, yes, you do want a quality finisher like Chris Wood on the end of some of the moves, but Chris Wood's not the type of player who's going to pick up the ball and dribble from halfway and like create all these chances. He's
by his own admission.
Yeah, he's a really good version of Sam Cosgrove. Is that all right to say?
Yeah, I was tossing that over in my head at the time. Is it? In some ways, yes, certainly. Like he's that type of player. He's that role, for sure.
Exactly. And Auckland FC are an awesome team because of everything else that is happening around Sam Cosgrove. You feel me? Like the All Whites, I think we need to put the biggest thing for the All Whites is everything except for Chris Wood. That is my perspective heading into this World Cup. A, because it bucks up against the stereotypical perspective, but B, I think it's genuinely how this team is going to be successful at the World Cup. You only have to look at how Elijah Just is playing. As you said, there's a lot of funk around that Ben Old situation. What is Ben Waine doing? He's chewing. The Waine train is alive and kicking. You've got Costa Barbarouses behind Ben Waine now. So, that is how good Ben Waine has been over in the other country, somewhere around the world.
Mixed in with how Costa Barbarouses' team is doing in the A-League. Just quietly.
Yeah, I don't want to get too sipping on the haterade. I did forecast that Costa Barbarouses, his move to Western Sydney Wanderers, would be detrimental to his All Whites hopes, because that's why he went there, was to get good footy for the All Whites, which I don't know, it's just a weird thing to do. And then you got other players who are coming back to the Phoenix, like Sarpreet Singh, who came back to the Phoenix to play games to get into the All Whites World Cup squad. He's not playing games because he's injured. So it's a bit messy. But there's just looking at your little depth chart you've got here for our newsletter, I don't know why you included Ollie Sale in the list of notable absence injury players. Fair play, yeah. You did explain it, but just the thought. Well,
then you know why I explained it.
But this is your list of All Whites players. I don't know
I needed a goalkeeper to make an 11 was the main reason. Yeah.
But
also the other thing about it is there's a contrast with him and everyone else on that list, because he's the only one of those injured players who's actually been ruled out for the World Cup. Everyone else is expected to return before then. So there's a contrast there as well, which, even though I don't think he would have nor should have been in that World Cup squad, he's the only one who actually is now out of it officially because of injury. Everyone, including Chris Wood, everyone else is expected to return within a month, maybe. Sarpreet Singh might be slightly after.
But these are the players on the list: Chris Wood, Sarpreet Singh, Matt Garbutt, Libby Kakache, Ryan Thomas, Bill Tuiloma, Elijah Just, Nando Pinnaker, Michael Boxall, Ollie Sale. That shows you the insanity around the Ollie Sale thoughts and words that you're seeing and reading and hearing, because Ollie Sale's not really in the mix. But
I think there's 5 goalkeepers who should be picked ahead of him, even if he were fit. Maybe 6.
You don't have anyone behind Tyler Bindon. Is that because he's just so good that he doesn't need anyone behind him?
Yes, but I could have said the same thing about Finn Sermon. It's also just because they only seem to have 3 centre-backs in the squad. And I would imagine because Bindon's a left-sided centre-back, I would guess if he did have to come off, precautionary type thing, which they might well do because he's in the season for Sheffield United, so you don't want to break him down. Probably Francis de Vries might just slide across and sort of do a makeshift job there. If it's on the right side, because maybe you just have. I guess the other reason is also because I wasn't repeating names on that thing. Whoever the backup CB is, or I guess is Bill Tuiloma, is the backup for both of them. But there are only 3 CBs, and normally would pick 4 or 5 in a 23-man squad, which is curious. And I think maybe points towards the fact that they want to give someone like Lachlan Bayliss an opportunity before the World Cup, but also want to give last chances to Callan Elliott, James McGarry, Andre De Jong, players like this in other positions who it's they're still competing for the maybe 5 positions that are up for grabs still in the World Cup sort of framework. And you want to get as many of those guys in as you can to give them that last chance in the final games before the actual squad is named.
Rogerson's in that category too, right?
Rogerson as well, absolutely.
He's not really a top tier All Whites player, but he's a solid depth player who could be a part of that squad. Your goalkeeper rankings are Crocombe, Paulson, and Veld, so that's good there. I was going to say something and it's just slipped me by. Like those mid, like again, we're talking about like what is the best All Whites football? What is the best case for the All Whites? Like Joe Bell, Marco Stamenic, Ryan Thomas in the midfield. Like it's like that is what's going to win you World Cup games. Elite defense is what is going to win you World Cup games. And I obviously it's Kiwi football, so elite defense has got to be a fundamental aspect that I expect to be okay, and that is matched by the talent that they have in that defensive unit. Like it's the defense and it's that core midfielder, and then like because who knows like what the attackers could do, but these are kind of the strengths that I don't think are being celebrated for the All Whites, even though some of these players are doing a lot more than Chris Wood was doing at that age. Like Chris Wood at the same age as Tyler Bindon. Tell me what Tyler Bindon's doing.
Tyler Bindon is playing tremendously well. He's been voted man of the match by the Sheffield United fans in 3 games in a row. They didn't win any of those games, which is why they're picking a defender, but he has been tremendous. And I watched the Norwich game in particular, and he was unreal. I was trying to find a full replay so I wanted to do one of those clips of like, just here's every defensive intervention that he made in this game, because it was just, everything was top notch. Everything was just decisive and dominant, and he played so well, even though they lost that game because the guys around him kept giving the ball away. And like just a couple of months ago, he wasn't even really in the picture for Sheffield United. He was their 4th choice centre back, and he was sitting on the bench when he could even make it to the bench. And then a couple injuries come along, he gets a chance, and now he is without doubt one of their starting CBs, without doubt. I mean, we don't even have to question it, because their coach actually said, when asked about Tyler Bindon last week, he said like this, him and Jeffa Tanganga, who's a sort of former, I think he used to play for Spurs and he was joined them from Millwall. That is their best defensive combination now at centre back. Like he said that, he's on the record, and you didn't really need him to say it because he's picked them in every game for ages. But there you go. Like from where Bindon was, I want to say it took a little bit of time to settle in at the championship level after stepping up from League One, but it's like it took 3 or 4 months. It's actually not that much time, before he was playing like one of Sheffield United's best players. It is insane the amount that he has achieved at 20, 21 years old, whatever he is at this point. I don't know exactly when his birthday is / was. He might have just turned 21, I think, like a month ago. It is incredible what he's achieved. And yeah, Chris Wood, our best footballer of his generation, our most successful Premier League footballer, was like at the same age bouncing around League One, League Two loan spells probably. He didn't like find his best form until 25, 26, something like that, playing in the championship level that Tyler Bindon is currently at right now. And even I was thinking about this about Elijah Just and how absolutely incredible he's been for Motherwell, to where like, I mean, he might end up as one of those like nominees for player of the season for that entire league at the end of the thing. Like people are recognizing how good this Motherwell team have been, and they're recognizing how good Elijah Just is within that. He scored again on the weekend. He scored against Celtic, and they just like kicked the crap out of him for that game. There's 3 separate instances where a guy got booked for fouling Elijah Just, and that's why he was on that injury list, is because he eventually had to limp off because they kept kicking him on his shin where he'd already been fouled. But he'll be fine. He'll shake that off and deal with a bit of bruising. But he is 25, turns 26 soon. It's like in a year's time, he might be playing for Celtic, and he might have scored goals at a World Cup or something like this. And I think that's the start of what should be like the prime of his career. He's got like 6 years or something to continue to be that player and better afterwards. And look where he already is now, and where he was like a year ago when he was on loan in 2nd division in Austria, just trying to get game time and scoring a lot of goals. But these things can happen very quickly, and has happened very quickly for a lot of these guys, which is incredible and immensely impressive. And there's several other examples I could run through of like similar cases, but the overall, like the bottom line of that is that I think it swings back to what you're saying about Chris Wood, where it's like the best version of the All Whites has Chris Wood as the striker. That's pretty clear. And they probably need him to score some goals at the World Cup to do stuff. But Chris Wood isn't going to create those goals for himself. For the All Whites to be successful, yes, that might need some Chris Wood goals. But for Chris Wood to be successful, he needs a whole bunch of other things to go right in the rest of that team. And there are so many candidates for that. Like, who's going to be the breakout player that everyone talks about for the All Whites that no one had heard of before? When you're scanning through little, inter-tournament reactions from media around the world kind of thing, there's like 10 candidates, and then some of them won't even be in the starting lineup. But it is a deep team. You've got Elijah Just, Matt Garbutt, Callum McCowart, Sarpreet Singh, Ben Old, Jesse Randall, etc. Probably one or two more. Ben Wayne, just in that attacking sort of region alone. Like this is a very deep All Whites team. And the proof of that is that they've picked a team here which has like 6 or 7 first choice players unavailable. And you put the rest of the dudes who have been picked into the, your preferred starting 11 or whatever. That still looks like the All Whites. It doesn't look like a makeshift team. That doesn't look like something that's been bandaged up and patched together. That looks like an All Whites team with a bunch of players who, like if they weren't going to be starting with everyone available, they're at least going to be challenging to be starting with everyone available. And there's a fair few guys there I think might quite enjoy that opportunity that they're going to get in these next couple of games to continue to apply pressure to others who, for whatever reason, haven't been available. But you can take 7 players out of this all-white squad and it doesn't look that much worse.
Something I was just thinking about as well, like what are things that might be like they could translate into World Cup football? Ben Old dribbling around 10 players, that doesn't seem like something that's going to be possible in a World Cup. Who knows? But Franny de Vries whipping and crosses, you're going to see it at the World Cup. And the All Whites will score a goal from a Franny de Vries cross or a corner. That's going to happen. There's no World Cup glow that influences Franny de Vries crossing the ball. That is going to be there in the World Cup. And it's going to be something that is going to stand out as like that is a weapon for the All Whites to use. I don't know other things. Like we'll have to move on, so we'll think about it deeply later. But maybe like an Elijah Just finishing. It's not on the same level as de Vries crossing, but I've seen Elijah Just score his goals in very different ways over the past 6 months. Like he's going right foot, he's going left foot, outside the box, inside the box, far post, near post, top bins, low bins, no bins, back of the net. He's doing it every single which way. And that seems something like if Elijah just gets the ball in a World Cup with a bit of space, he's going to be up against World Cup defenders. He's going to be up against World Cup goalkeepers. So I don't feel as confident about this as Franny de Vries crossing the ball. But if he's going to shoot, he's going to put it in a corner. And that might be a World Cup goal. Like you know that the work rate might transfer. The work rate of Sermon and Bindon blocking shots, that's something that could transfer into World Cup football. The effort of Tim Payne and Callan Elliott up and down the right side of the field, that could transfer into a World Cup. Like we will talk about that in the next few months leading into the World Cup. But like it's something that I just found very interesting to brainstorm and ponder, because there is one thing. There might be 2 or 3, and none of which involves Chris Wood. I am still interested in the Tim Payne, Callan Elliott battle. And this is where we'll slide into the A-League. Like, if Tim Payne locked in as the first 11 starter, that's level 5. is he still at that level 5 and Kellen Elliott's like moving up to 3.5 to 4? Or is Tim Payne, has he dropped to like 4 and Kellen Elliott's moved up to 3? How are you viewing that battle between them? Tim Payne, obviously part of a Wellington Phoenix victory this weekend, and Kellen Elliott doing well for Auckland FC. We all know Tim Payne's going to start, but Wellington Phoenix have been stinking it up this season, and Kellen Elliott, he's not Sakai. He's a different right back to Sakai, but I think he's doing pretty well. So how are you, where are you at in maybe the gap between them? How big do you think that gap is?
It's definitely shrunk this season because Elliott, thanks to injuries for Sakai, has been able to play a lot, and Payne, thanks to injuries to himself, has not played as much as he would like. I think that's still Payne is a fairly settled starter. And if that's going to change, I don't think it's necessarily Elliott's performances in the A-League have gotten him into the squad. They don't necessarily change his relationship to Payne as a starter, because Baisley's thinking about, it's not just picking the all-star team, he's also picking a squad. And Payne is a very experienced guy who I think is going to be trusted a bit more at that sort of the scaling up to the World Cup stuff. So if that dynamic is the gap between them is going to change, I think that changes based on what happens in these games coming up rather than what happened in terms of how they got selected. So that is absolutely something to look at, because Payne has he hasn't played that much this season, and he might be a little bit rusty, and Elliott's been very good when he's gotten opportunities. Elliott does have to try and win his spot, though. He is one of those ones where it's Payne will be there. If someone overtakes him, he'll be at the World Cup. Elliott, not necessarily. He's one of those guys who's on the fringes of trying to they might decide they want Bill Tuiloma to be the backup right back because he also covers centre back, and then it helps them pick another player in attack or something. Those kind of considerations come into it. But as I am a big fan of Kellen Elliott. I think he's having a very good season when he's played. I think he should have played more even when Sakai was available, and I'm very glad he's in the squad. And like those other guys, like his teammates, I don't think Michael Veld really he's not going to play in these games. He's going to be playing Crocombe and Paulson. And I also think Michael Veld, just him being selected doesn't actually mean he's the third choice goalkeeper. I think it's more just if you're not going to play, we don't need to take you away from your clubs at relatively crucial times for guys like Case Sims, Henry Gray. Nick Sanev, you probably could have, because he's not actually playing for Huddersfield, but also Michael Veld should be picked ahead of Nick Sanev at this point on form, so that's fair enough. That's a little bit more of an availability pick, but guys like Rogerson, Bayliss, I think Jesse Randall's pretty much locked into the World Cup squad now, not only because he's had such a good season, not only because he's got the transfer coming up, but also because he is a point of difference as a winger who stays wide and has pace, who can get in behind, also capable of playing through the middle as well, so that helps his cause too. But I think we're mostly going to see him as a left winger as the backup to Ben Old, and he does have a point of difference to get selected, which is probably the thing that Logan Rogerson has in his case as well. I think we'll probably see Randall get that pick instead of Rogerson rather than both, but guys like that are playing for selection, so those are pretty important ones, and they're also playing pretty well at the A-League level. Logan Rogerson has won a fair few games this season. I'm not sure if the stats still back it up. They certainly did earlier, but they've tended to look like a better team when he's there, and he has been starting games recently. He did score last week. Last week is in the game before this game, and he did miss a big chance, I think, again on the weekend, which he does that a little bit too often. But very good work rate, and he also has that pace. He also is that sort of vertical running wide player. A more traditional winger versus guys like McCowart, Justin, Singh, and whoever else, Garbett, who love to drift infield and combine. So that stuff all helps. Yeah.
And he has shown, he is trusted by Steve Corica to play that position because of his work rate. And to play for the All Whites at the World Cup, obviously there's no one in there who's not going to do the work, but if you're trying to compete for a spot and you've got a shot, you've got footage of you consistently putting in defensive efforts, it can only help you. And that's why Jesse Randall is Jesse Randall. Everyone looks at his attacking ability, but he's always there defensively doing his work as well. That's what makes him Jesse Randall. You did drop one, I won't say one thing, because in typical fashion you don't have one thing. You've got one paragraph for each team that includes many different things. And I have broken it down team by team in the A-League as well, because all three teams had a win this weekend or last weekend. This week in the A-League Women, Sydney hosting Wellington Phoenix. That's a Friday nighter. The Auckland FC are hosting MacArthur on Saturday, followed by Brisbane hosting Wellington. I had written down here the Rogerson impact. I think he's impacting winning footy for the Auckland FC team. Simply because when he's in the team, I just think Auckland FC are better. We've had the Luka Visilic debut. I feel like we've talked about him and that group of footballers a lot before. The thing I want to talk about for Auckland FC, though, is the improvements. Because we can poke fun at Cosgrove and myself for being so blatantly, obviously wrong about the one and only Sam Cosgrove. Kind of right, kind of wrong. He's got better. Mai has got better. Their combination has got better. Auckland FC have got better as a team. And I think it's something that we need to remember in a lot of these like seasons is you can have your down patches, and Auckland FC did have a down patch in the height of summer. But they are one of the best teams in the A-League for a reason, and that means you build from that, you learn and you grow, and they've been doing pretty well with a midfield of Gallios and Cam Howison, including a win in Newcastle. Like, yes, Verstrada is awesome, and they've been holding steady, if not doing pretty well, without Verstrada. So they've made improvements, they've shown development, but again, like the Warriors or the Blackcaps or any of these teams, their depth players are chipping in. And we've talked a lot about Howison. He's a depth player. And he's just doing his job in that midfield, keeping everything else ticking along. And like even Girdwood Reich, he just looks better with every game you see him play. So I think that's my favourite thing for Auckland FC, which I believe was on show in their win against Newcastle Jets. That was away to Newcastle. They think themselves as the best team in the A-League. They're really good. They're really fun. They're really vibrant. Because they're kind of everything Chiefy wishes he might have been. And Auckland FC just got the job done. I don't think we would have been expecting Auckland FC to get the job done a month and a half ago, but they've improved to be able to do that, right? Like, it's not like they're back to full strength. No, Sakai got injured, Verstrada got injured, but they've made the improvements, and that's what stands out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That is like, I mean, if you go back, the last 4 games starts with the 5-0 against Wellington, and then they had, 3-0 against Central Coast? No, Melbourne City. Then the draw against Perth, where they played quite well. Probably should have won that game. And then the win against Newcastle in Newcastle. Huge victory in terms of, they're actually on a 6-game unbeaten streak, going back a little further. But if you just go that last 4 games, like the last month-ish since the derby, and if I ask you, like, which players do you think have played in that 4-game stretch the best football of their season? Michael Veld, right, would be on that list. I think Dan Hall should be on that list. Jake Goodwood Wright should be on that list. Cosgrove, Mai, you mentioned. Rogerson, Howison. I'll tell you who else I would like. Gallegos should be there. I would put Jesse Randall on there as that list of improvers. I think even though he started the season so well, he's playing better now than he was then. Is there anyone else that I've missed? You know, we've already named most of their starting lineup in their best form.
Do you want me to add another player, or
if you've got one?
No, we need to move on. So we're talking each team here. So Wellington Phoenix woman, big 3-0 win. Back to just the gloriousness of watching the Wellington Phoenix women do their thing under the no longer the drone lady, under Bev Priestman coaching extraordinaire. My thing for this game was there was no Pia Vlock. And this fits into everything else we're talking about. Because it's all about Pia Vlock for the Wellington Phoenix woman. She's now in the Football Ferns and all that stuff. Well, they just won 3-0 without her. Like, that is the Wellington Phoenix women's squad where they're at as one of the best women's teams in the A-League. Not only do they have the depth to move forward without Pia Vlock, but they have so many different ways of playing. They got so many different ways of scoring goals and breaking down the opposition, part of which includes that Football Ferns midfield combination of Grace Jale and Emma Pynenberg. And I think if they're combining for the Wellington Phoenix woman, that's only going to be better for the Football Ferns because they can be a midfield combo for both teams, and they're getting those reps with the Wellington Phoenix. But right now, it's all about the Wellington Phoenix woman, and I really love what Grace Jale and Emma Pynenberg are doing together in the midfield.
Yeah, and Pynenberg was, I thought, spectacular in that game against Brisbane, which was a little bit like that was a weakened Brisbane team. They got several players, I think, who were still in the or who've been in Asia Cup squads. So if you're going by rules in other leagues, maybe they should have been allowed to postpone that game. But you also, from the Phoenix perspective, you just play who's in front of you, and they went out there and smoked them from the start, and should honestly have won that 6-0. They could have doubled that. Michaela Woods missed 2 open goals before finally scoring one.
Yeah, it's all right. We're not stressing about missed goals when you're winning 3-0.
That's what I've been saying about her all along. Is like she's gonna miss some of those. She's not that good of a finisher, but she is going to get the 3rd opportunity and score that one afterwards, or the 4th or the 5th or whatever. Like she just stays in the action, which is why they've re-signed her. But yeah, imagine it's a bit of a luxury to be able to say, like, Pia Vlock's picked up a concussion with the Football Ferns. We're gonna rest her out for this week. She's unavailable. Let's just bring in Macy Fraser and give her 45 minutes off the bench. And there's I think there's a very clear spot alongside Pia Vlock in that starting lineup where you can have Fraser and Vlock at the expense of like Leon or Anthony, who started the game on the weekend. Have those two in behind Michaela Woods, and that idea of like Michaela Woods getting 3, 4, 5 good opportunities per game, that you might double that. You've got those two working hard right behind her and putting in those through balls for her to run onto and whipping in crosses for her, as well with like Grace Jale and Emma Pynenberg playing extremely well in the midfield. Beneath that, you got good quality out wide. Because even with Lara Waller injured, well, that's just going to be more of a spotlight for Mania Elliott to play bigger minutes. And Brooke Nunn's been one of their best players all season. The back three is absolutely brilliant. And Verkessen's keeping clean sheets. And she made a save on the weekend that was unreal towards the end to keep that clean sheet. So, yeah, things are looking decent for them. And for a team that's had a lot of injuries, to be able to still be in this position is impressive. To be able to also bring in a player like Macy Fraser for the home run or the home stretch for the season, pretty handy too, because you don't need to be giving her 90 minutes. If she's not match fit, you can give her 30 minutes off the bench in games, and that's probably going to be enough.
Yeah, I'll just chill out with Macy Fraser. Like, I think they're just going to slowly integrate her into this team, and she'll be coming off the bench. And then next season we'll start to talk about the situation you brought up, which is very exciting. But I think for the best thing for all parties is Macy Fraser just chipping in with her mahi. I do love these A-League names, of course. The A-League, they go for the full name banger. So we got Mania Poppy Elliott. We got Emma Sheila Pynenberg. We got Daisy Afina Brazendale and Emma Kalan Main. So shout out to the full names of all A-League footballers. Finishing with the Wellington Phoenix men. Everything I've said about the wing-back role was there with Dan Edwards in place of Carlo Armiento. And as you said in our newsletter, finally Greenacre changed some stuff. He changed the coach who replaced Chiefy finally decided to change things from the coach he replaced, and they won a game. So I did like that. Like, But Edwards, like, you know how you brought up the A-League stats of like the power runs and that type of stuff.
Mm.
Stuff that
Yeah, the stuff that Armiento wasn't doing.
Stuff that Tim Payne has built his career on, stuff that Carlo Armiento isn't doing. Dan Edwards is more like Tim Payne. And I don't think Dan Edwards is like a super duper attacking threat. Like, he's the opposite of Carlo Armiento in all regards. He doesn't have that attacking polish, but he's doing the work. And that is the style of wingback that I want. So I had that kind of crystallization in the win watching Dan Edwards, because he's a worker. And in that position, I want a worker. I don't want a winger trying to do defensive mahi. Like, you do that job, but I don't want you having to come all the way back. And Carlo Armiento wasn't doing that work. So I did like... I don't want to say I really enjoy what Dan Edwards does, because he still lacks that attacking polish, but just having the worker on the left side of the field to go with Tim Payne, I think, is useful. And then you put Carlo Armiento in a better position further up the field instead of like all his defensive work that you're trying to get him to do.
Or you just leave him on the bench like they did in this game and win without him. Matt Sheridan on the bench as well. The back four was just, these are... I still like to see more Luke Brooks-Smith than we've seen, but it's like this isn't like... Armiento will have a role to play. He'll come on and play in his actual best position as a winger, where he doesn't have to do as much of that defensive work, and that'll be fine. Matt Sheridan can play anywhere, so he's always going to be available. It's like these are changes that needs to be made, though, just to differentiate yourself from the previous regime. You had to change something. We saw 2 games. I don't know why it took until the 3rd game. It should have happened straight away, but we did see it in the 3rd game, and they did win a good performance. They ground out a solid 2-0 victory, and that gives them something to build off for the rest of the season. Now, like that gives them actually finally something, a little bit of a stepping stone to see what they can do from here on. And yeah, overdue, but we saw it, and they got the result that we were hoping to see from them when they did finally change something up.
Beauty, that is us. So do your best and have a crack. Pretty hard to do in these times and these days, but you can also just focus on gratitude and your own positivity. Big up. We appreciate your care, cast. Stay beautiful. Church.